Alexander Barabanov has a hand injury that is going to put him out for, quote, a while, according to David Quinn. So we're going to dig into a potential timeline for Barabanov, look at players who have an opportunity to step up in his absence, and the long-term ramifications for Barabanov injury as he's in the last year of his contract. So all that and more on today's episode.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello. Welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at Inside the Rink, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Probably a part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow on wherever you get podcasts, or you can subscribe on YouTube as well, or do both. Both is great. And today's episode, we're going to be digging into the Alexander Barabanov injury. I know I was going to talk about defenseman, but I think the Barabanov injury is bigger news right now. Well, we can talk about defenseman next week. So we're going to look into his injury, look at a potential timeline compared to other players who've had similar injuries. Look at who this maybe opens the door for as the Sharks continue to try to shuffle lines here. And then the long-term ramifications for Barabanov and his future. So before we do all that, do need to let you know that today's episode is brought to you guys by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. All right, so Alexander Barabanov from Shangpeng at San Jose Hockey Now apparently broke his finger in the loss to the Florida Panthers on Tuesday night. So you saw there's kind of a big scrum at the end of the, I think about 5 minutes left in the third period. Barabanov left, went down the tunnel, and he did not return in that game as the Sharks were trying to come back from 1 goal down and eventually lose by 2 goals thanks to an empty netter. So really, really stinks for Alexander Barabanov, who I think has become one of the kind of fan favorites among the Sharks as a guy who you traded for, didn't really know much about, and has produced basically since the moment he has gotten here. And yeah, you feel for him as he's in the last year of his deal, 1 year left at $2.5 million. And, you know, he was considered one of, if not the biggest trade chips for the Sharks going into the trade deadline. And we'll talk about the trade deadline here at the end of the show. But you feel bad for him who's, you know, that he's due for a raise, and this maybe puts a little bit of a damper on said raise. Or maybe we'll discuss what Barabanov might try to do here. But you know, it just stinks for a guy who I think has become, like I said, has become kind of a really fun guy to watch play, and really has found his groove. You know, with the Sharks, I think this year has been a little bit of a tough start for him. In the 6 games that he's played this year, he doesn't have any points this year. But you know, Barabanov last year playing with Couture was, you know, had 47 points, and I thought personally for Barabanov this year, this could be the year where he could be a 55, potentially 60 point, you know, producer. But it just hasn't happened with Couture being injured, and now with him being injured, like it's a bit tough. So looking at a potential timeline. So if it is a broken finger or a fractured finger, that you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks, right? I looked at some recent injuries to see when guys kind of got hurt and when they're expected back, et cetera, et cetera. Ryan O'Reilly, so he broke his March 4th last year, returned April 6th, so a little over a month. I think his was a little bit rushed as he wanted to try to get back, especially being a new guy. He had just been acquired by the Maple Leafs at the trade deadline. I think he wanted to get back, get some games in before heading into the playoffs. So I think that's a very, very aggressive timeline. And for a guy, again, the Sharks aren't going to be playing meaningful games this season. especially by the time Barabanov is probably going to be ready to get back. So I think that's a little bit aggressive. If that were to happen, you look at that timeline. You're looking at probably right around Thanksgiving-ish or right after Thanksgiving. The Sharks do have a bit of a homestand there before they head on the road. So November 24th, the day after Thanksgiving, they play the Canadiens that Friday. Then they play the Canucks that Saturday. And then Monday, they play on the 27th, they play the Capitals before heading on a East Coast road trip there. So I feel like if he doesn't make it by then he's probably not going on the road trip, right? Or a very interesting one because of the dates here. James Van Riemsdyk last year broke his finger on October 24th, 2022. Barabanov broke his October 24th, 2023. James Van Riemsdyk returned December 7th, 2022. The Sharks have a game on December 7th. So that game is in Detroit versus the Red Wings, the second to last game of a road trip here. And then December 10th, they have a game against the Golden Knights before returning home on December 12th against the Jets. So I think that's more of a realistic range. If I had to kind of circle one, I think the Golden Knights December 10th kind of makes the most sense, depending on how his rehab and everything is, how he's feeling and everything is going. But right, December 10th, you can kind of, if they finish the game on the 7th, they're gonna fly out to Vegas, or they might even fly home with Vegas being such a short trip. They can reconnect on the 8th. He can start practicing with his teammates, right? And then that gives you the 8th, the 9th, and then, morning skate of the 10th. So it kind of lets him get back into the groove a little bit before his return. So December 10th makes the most sense to me as a kind of a circle the date. That one makes the most sense. Or when the Sharks return home against the Jets on the 12th. So if it is the 10th, that would be 21 games that he would miss this season, which is, basically that is a quarter of the season, 20 games, right? And then you put that with the 6 games that he's already played. That's basically a third of the season gone for Barabanov, who, again, in the last year of his deal, I assume is looking for a big, a raise here, which he very much deserves. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking for a little bit of term. That way he can kind of, set his generations of success type of deal. So, but it stinks for Barabanov, who has had a bit of a rough start, especially without Couture, and then is now going to have to do this. And we'll get into who can step up, and we'll talk about the trade deadline and Barabanov's future here at the end of the show. But you just feel for, like I said, you feel for this guy who has quickly become a Sharks favorite. And I think the Sharks should still re-sign him, even if he has a down year coming off this injury, because I think he can still be a great piece for the Sharks going forward. We'll talk about that here in a minute. So before we get into guys who I think have the potential to, kind of step up and take advantage of this opportunity and talk about the trade deadline and Barabanov's future, I just need to take a quick break and talk to you guys about our good friends over at FanDuel. If you want to snap into action with this NFL season, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, has got you covered, because right now new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So if you think about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Keep hammering the Christian McCaffrey touchdowns like it's 16 now. He's just going to keep scoring touchdowns. I don't know what else to tell you. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, so with Barabanov being out, players are going to have an opportunity to kind of soak up some of these minutes, right? Barabanov this year only averaging 1621, which is down from the 1803 he saw last year. And I think it's because of the more depth on the Sharks. But I think the easy person to point to has a big opportunity here is William Eklund, right? Barabanov has been playing on the first line with Hurdle and Duclair the past couple games. And I think Eklund has been one of the best Sharks wingers, and we wanted to see him with better center play. I think playing with Hurdle is the best center on the team. I think would be a huge opportunity for William Eklund, who we've seen been able to get passes to guys who just quite aren't able to finish. Well, Anthony Duclair and Tomas Hurdle, we know those guys can both score goals and they can score them in bunches. So I know right now both of them only have one goal apiece on the season, but I think getting a guy like Eklund, who's such a great passer and distributor on that line, like that is a big time opportunity for I think for William Eklund, or for Slippery Pete to kind of be the slipperiest on the first line. So that is the first guy I'm looking to, right? Is can William Eklund, who's I think we've seen really start to kind of stack positive games here. Can he take his game to the next level here while playing against you're going to be playing against the other team's top line. So it'll be a big test for him to see if he can kind of take his game to the next level, facing the top competition that the other team has. So some other guys who I think have a big opportunity here is one, Filip Zadina, right? Zadina, who came out of the gate really strong for the Sharks, and kind of the past two games has been, I don't know if he's in David Quinn's doghouse or whatever it is. I think this is an opportunity for him to reestablish himself, right? We know the first line, Hurdle, Duclair, and whoever they want to put, if it's Zadina or if it is Eklund, whoever gets that opportunity, like you're still going to have a pretty solid line, I think, in the second line. And if it's Peterson, LeBanc, and Zadina or whomever, this person's going to get an opportunity. I think Filip Zadina is the next person who should get a really good opportunity. And I think a line of Zadina, Peterson, LeBanc isn't the worst line in the world. So I think LeBanc, who's played much more physical recently, we know Zadina can play physically, and I think Peterson can kind of be a little bit of a distributor on that line. That line has an opportunity to kind of do something there. And I think for some guys who are trying to establish themselves, if that's the line right there that you have, I think that the establishment line there of which of those guys can kind of step up and take their game to the next level, and especially right now with so many players still trying to kind of figure things out this early in the season. So I think Filip Zadina has a big opportunity here, especially with if Alexander Barabanov is out. Barabanov, who's been a power play one type of guy, and Zadina, who couldn't even get on power play two last game. I think you have to try to find a way to get Zadina more involved. Again, I don't know if he's in the doghouse and he needed to kind of go down to the bottom of the ladder for a game or two for whatever reason. But I think with Barabanov out, Quinn he's going to start running out of options of guys that he can kind of trust, and especially with Hoffman, who we talked about yesterday, hasn't really been kind of producing the way you'd want. Duclair's got a goal, but still I think has been pretty quiet for the Sharks here. And Luke Cunnin, who's Luke Cunnin, and has been I don't want to talk about Luke Cunnin. But I think you point to Zadina and you point to Eklund as the two big beneficiaries of potential ice time, and we've seen their role expanded. And I think another person I really want to kind of see give an opportunity is Fabian Zetterlund, who's had a really, really great start to the season, right? Zetterlund, who came over in the trade deadline from the Timo Meier deal and looked lost and borderline unplayable at times last year, because and I think we forget that's the human element of it at times, especially with the trade, right? going from a super fun, you're winning every night team like the New Jersey Devils, you come to San Jose, the team that kind of drafted you and developed you and is expecting you to kind of be part of you're expecting them to think that you're part of the future. And then you get shipped to San Jose where his team was a mess, was in the running for the worst team in the league. And right, it's a lot. And then you're trying to kind of jump it on the fly and trying to produce, and maybe you're gripping your stick a little hard or whatever it was. It was tough for Zetterlund. And I think we've seen with him kind of an offseason to breathe, get used to the system, kind of figure things out for himself, right? We've seen Zetterlund and why Devils fans were really sad to kind of see him go. And I think he's played really well in the position that he's been at. And I'd like to see what happens if he gives Zetterlund a little bit more, right? Playing him instead of the bottom six, playing him in the middle six, right? Maybe on that second line, even a first line. Again, the season's young and we can see some craziness, but I think Zetterlund, the way he has played with his physicality, his kind of nose to the net, like that no BS, I'm just going to drive to the net. I'm going to shoot when I have a good shot. I'm not going to be selfish about it, but I'm going to take the opportunity to shoot when I have a good chance. I want to see if he can continue to replicate that when he has a little bit more competition but a little bit more ice time and a little bit, just little, you're not playing fourth line minutes type of situation. So I think rewarding a guy like Zetterlund, who has had a really, really good start to the season, I think three wingers there that could potentially see some opportunity. And just saying, maybe our boy Danil Gushchin. I know the Sharks aren't going to call anybody up right now, especially with a couple games on the road trip. And Danil Gushchin's literally playing right now against I'm watching the Silver Knights. He had a goal tonight. But if you want to give Danil Gushchin some run, who has had a good start to the season, this would be a perfect time to see that. Especially for a team that is struggling to score in the Sharks, putting Gushchin on a second line, or if you don't want to put Ek on the first line, give me the CUDA line of William Eklund, Thomas Bordelot, and Danil Gushchin. And then when Couture comes back, you can put him on that second line and just have Eklund, who we know what Eklund can do. Gushchin, who's an absolute sniper and has produced in the NHL. He's produced everywhere he's gone. The guy can't stop scoring points. And then Couture is a savvy vet. Like, sign me up for that. So another possibility that we haven't is just if Mikael Granlund, I know he had a bit of a setback. So I wonder if they might shut him down for a little bit to see if he is fully ready to get back. Again, it's a long season, but plenty of opportunity for some of these young guys to get some run here and kind of set themselves up for future success, right? And then when Barabanov comes back and guys start getting traded, you hope that you can, rely on your Gushchins or your Eklund, who maybe has established himself as a first line winger now in the 20 or so games that Barabanov's gone. Or Zadina or Zetterlund have kind of established themselves as a middle six guys. It's just because Barabanov's gone doesn't mean there's some opportunities for some other guys. And I think who can take that opportunity and run with it. So I don't expect Gushchin to get called up, but if he starts killing it like he's been doing in the AHL, I think he might force the Sharks to have to do something, especially if they continue to struggle to score goals. And Danil Gushchin, noted goal scorer. So before we finish up, we're going to talk about the trade deadline, what this means for Barabanov and the Sharks. And we're also going to discuss kind of Barabanov's future with it. Just want to take a quick break here. Talk to you guys about our good friends over at Jace Medical. So much uncertainty in the world right now. Right here in California, you have fire season that's here, earthquakes, whatever. You never know when something's going to happen. When an emergency happens, Sometimes they can leave supply chain shortages and where it hits medication and you are unable to get medications in a timely manner. That's where the Jace case comes in. It's a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jace Medical now offers customizability for your Jace case with dozens of add-on medications. You can choose the medications that are best fit for you and your family's needs. And they're continually working to expand their medication offering. So maybe if they don't have something you need right now, keep checking back because they're continually adding stuff. Or if you don't know what your family needs, your loved ones, you can always buy a gift card for a family or your loved ones. That way they can get a Jace case of their own. So go to jacemedical.com. Enter code Locked On at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code Locked On at jasemedical.com. And then it's hockey season. You guys know this. That's why you're listening to a hockey podcast. And with a new NHL season, you have all sorts of possibilities. Tomas Hertl could score 50 goals. Your team could hoist. Your team, the Sharks, are not hoisting the Stanley Cup. Or you could win big by playing a daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is the #1 choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. Players, there's always crazy players to pick like McDavid. Maybe not McDavid because he's hurt right now, but Ovechkin, who's going to be playing the Sharks on Sunday. You have Crosby, you have McKinnon, Cale Makar. You can choose the stars that you want to root for, and you just pick easy stats. Like, will they record more or less of goals, assists, saves, plus minus, more in a given game? Keep betting the capital cap or the any of the Sharks goalies. Just bet the over on the saves because the Sharks are just hemorrhaging shots right now. So to win 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Sharks fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. And you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and location availability. All right, so what does this mean for Barabanov's future? We'll start kind of looking at the trade deadline. And a guy who has 0 points, when you start to enter, when the calendar turns December, this might really hurt his trade value, especially if, because GM's short-sighted, right? You just see a guy like Barabanov, and if he's got, come February, he's got 5 goals and 10 assists. It's not the greatest look when it comes to the actual trade deadline. So if maybe he comes back, he has a strong kind of return to form, especially playing with Logan Couture. Like you could see him definitely bouncing back, right? But there's always that where a slow season just kind of turns into a bad season. And that there's always that making for him. So it'll be interesting to see, especially if Couture is back, if Barabanov and them can kind of get that chemistry back going and Barabanov can kind of get those scoring, because again, a lot of GMs are going to look at point production and your minutes played, right? Those are kind of the big indicators of your trade value. Yes, there's scouts watching them, but like you can kind of point to, okay, what type of ice time is this getting and how much production is this guy getting? And point to a lot of the trade value for him, especially for a guy like Barabanov who doesn't play penalty kill. He is very much a how much production can you give me type of guy. What can you do to help my offense type of player? And if your point production, yes, the Sharks are a bad team, but if your point production is down, that might lower your trade value here. So I think Barabanov will still be shopped. I know he wants to be here. I think he'll still be shopped, but I think if the Sharks aren't getting the appropriate compensation for Barabanov, I think that maybe makes this more likely for him to stay. Who knows if it's long-term and stuff, but kind of a couple options here. If he does want to stay, maybe the Sharks reward him, right? We saw it with like Knizhov, who little bit different situation, but basically missed 2 seasons, came back, and the Sharks gave him a 2-year contract. It's kind of a show of faith. We still believe in you. Yes, I know Kenny Job's younger, still developing. Much was out for 18 months to 2 years, whatever, a little bit different. But maybe the Sharks are like, you know what, Barabanov, we love you. We know you this season wasn't the best for you. We want you to stick around and be part of what we're building. We think you can be a, middle 6 player for us as we start to add some of our blue chip pieces. And I think you can still contribute. Don't have a lot of wear or tear on your tires. This is kind of the first big injury you've had. And again, it's a broken finger, right? Like, it's not like this happens when you play hockey, right? I'd be more worried if it was like a hamstring or kind of those soft tissue. Like, it's a broken finger. Like, the healing is much easier process for this than with like a hamstring or a calf injury or a muscle injury where that stuff can kind of re-aggravate. I'm not worried about, like, if it breaks his finger, I'm not worried that he's going to break his finger again. It's kind of just a freak accident. So, but Barabanov, we love you. Mike Gura says, like, let's do a 4-year, $4.5 million deal, which is what the deal I pitched beginning of the season. Come back and be part of what we're building. We think you can be a big time piece for us and help us with these young kids, especially as we have a lot of Russian players entering our system, right? You got Gushchin, who, a lot of these guys do speak English, but it's just nice to have that, like, a guy, a leader. And I think Barabanov could be one of those guys, a mentor, especially for some of the younger Russian players, right? Totally an option, right? Barabanov can also say, thank you guys for everything. I'm going to walk in free agency, which would be like the worst case scenario, letting him walk in free agency and not getting anything out of him, which would be his right. But I think another option too is maybe Barabanov comes back for one more year, tries to put together a really good year on what we think is going to be a better team next year, especially with starting to inject more pieces. You assume guys like Henry Thrun's going to be playing, Shakir Mukhamadullin, William Eklund in a second season. You're going to have guys like Gushchin and Bordelot and maybe Robbins and some other guys starting to make an impact. Maybe a guy like Will Smith or Macklin Celebrini are both on the team. Like, you could see where this team could start to get better. Maybe Barabanov signs a 1-year deal, comes back, tries to improve his value, and then either gets traded at the trade deadline, because again, we think the Sharks will be better next season, but not like substantially better. Maybe he gets shopped at the trade deadline, then goes to a contender, or tries up his value before he signs a kind of a more lucrative deal. So I think right now, if I had to guess, I think, especially if you're missing a third of the season, you've already had a slow start to the season. I think I lean more towards he stays with San Jose, and I wouldn't be surprised if he signs a kind of that deal that he's looking for, especially for, I think Mike Greer knows what he has. And I think you can see how Barabanov's game will age pretty well, as I discussed, kind of in my case to keep Barabanov. So again, hope Barabanov gets better. But it stinks. It's the worst time, especially because it's been such a slow start for him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets back and especially if he's reunited with Couture, and both those guys just kind of pick up where they left off last season. So that's going to be it for me today. Again, sorry about the defense. I thought talking about Barabanov is a little bit more important right now. We'll dig into the defense next week. Got plenty of time next week, as the Sharks have like 4 days off. I think they play on Sunday. They don't play again until Thursday. So we got plenty of time to dig in some different topics next week. We'll also dig into the prospects, and we're going to have a Barracuda player interview as well. So plenty of good stuff coming here at Locked On Sharks. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can subscribe on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you want, on Instagram at My Fry Hole. And until tomorrow, bye, friends.